Air Baltic is a flag carrier of Latvia, and it's a very interesting airline because they only operate a single aircraft type, the Airbus A220-300. And as such, Air Baltic is the only airline in the world that has a fleet of only the Airbus A220. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. I want to analyze the airline's fleet and route network, as well as benefits that the Airbus A220 has brought to not just Air Baltic, but to other airlines as well. Air Baltic, as I mentioned before, is a flag carrier of Latvia. Located in northeastern Europe next to the Baltic Sea, they have their largest hub at Riga International Airport in Latvia, as well as secondary hubs in nearby countries including Vilnius, Lithuania, and Tallinn, Estonia, as well as a base in Tampere, Finland, and an upcoming winter seasonal base at Gran Canaria in Spain. They have over 80 destinations as of August 2023 and a fleet of 43 aircraft, more specifically the Airbus A220-300, which they began operating in 2016. Throughout their history, Air Baltic has operated multiple aircraft types including the Saab 340, the Avro RJ70, the Fokker 50, the Boeing 737-300, the 737-500, and even the 757-200, as well as the Bombardier Q400 that was just recently retired in 2023, while the 737s were retired in 2020. Air Baltic first ordered the Airbus A220 in 2012 when they placed an order for 20 of them, back when the aircraft was known as the Bombardier C-Series. Airbus then bought a 51% share in the C-Series program from Bombardier in 2018, so it was renamed the Airbus A220. Air Baltic started operating the aircraft in 2016. In 2018, Air Baltic ordered a further 30 A220s, and about 30 purchase options. This would bring the airline's fleet to about 50 aircraft by 2024. As of September 2023, Air Baltic's fleet is made up of 44 Airbus A220-300s with 145 seats each. They still have another 6 aircraft to be delivered by 2024 and options for another 30 aircraft, which would bring the airline's fleet up to 80. Air Baltic's fleet of Airbus A220 has enabled them to fly many routes that they would have never been able to operate otherwise. Thanks to its fuel efficiency, many unprofitable routes became viable, and many medium-haul markets were open to the airline, such as Dubai, Morocco, and the Canary Islands, as well as smaller cities within Europe, massive growth of their existing bases, and new aircraft bases such as Tampere and Gran Canaria. Air Baltic originally only operated flights out of Riga until they opened new bases at Vilnius and Tallinn in the 2000s. Since then, Air Baltic has grown significantly and turned into a mid-sized European airline thanks to the A220 operating sort of a hybrid network in which Air Baltic uses Riga as their main connecting hub, while offering point-to-point routes from their other bases. Meanwhile, Air Baltic's cabin product is kind of a hybrid between a low-cost and a full-service airline, which includes some sort of European business class where the middle seat is blocked, while the economy section is more of a low-cost model. Currently, as of 2023, Air Baltic has just over 80 destinations all over Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, including about 76 routes from Riga, the airline's main hub, where Air Baltic offers connecting flights. About 70% of passengers at Riga are connecting passengers. Meanwhile, Air Baltic also has 21 routes from Tallinn, 16 from Vilnius, and 12 from Tampere, and about 10 routes from Gran Canaria, including 7 routes outside of the Baltics, as well as a flight between Palanga and Amsterdam. As part of their growth strategy, Air Baltic has in recent years added many new flights such as Riga and Abu Dhabi in 2019, which at 7 hours was the longest flight of the airline at the time. It has since then been suspended thanks to the pandemic, but Air Baltic did launch a new flight to Dubai in 2021, which is just as long, although a little bit more complicated to operate thanks to Russian airspace restrictions. But it does seem to be a very successful flight, especially because of the partnership with Emirates, since Air Baltic allows Emirates to access more destinations in the nearby Baltics and Finland where Emirates doesn't fly. Air Baltic has also added other destinations such as Istanbul, Tenerife, Hamburg, and others. Meanwhile, this winter, Gran Canaria will become the airline's 5th base, which is going to be a winter seasonal base where Air Baltic is going to have a total of 10 destinations, and its purpose is going to be to serve the very high demand between Northern Europe and the Canary Islands during winter. This winter, they are also going to be launching flights to Agadir and multiple routes to Tenerife, while next year, 2024, they're going to be adding a bunch of new destinations, including Alicante, Chisinau, Ljubljana, Pristina, Skopje, Sofia, and Tirana, as well as multiple new routes from their other hubs, including flights between Vilnius and Krakow, and a new route from Palanga to Amsterdam. where Air Baltic already flies from 4 cities, and where passengers can connect onto other flights on KLM. However, the population of the Baltic countries is so small that growth is rather limited. The population of the three countries combined is about 6.19 million, of which Lithuania has the largest population at 2.8 million, while the largest city in the region is Riga with 917,000. So this entire area is much smaller than many entire European countries, which is why Air Baltic opened their first base outside of the Baltics in Tampere, the second largest city in Finland, with a population of over 400,000 people and a catchment area of over a million people, where Air Baltic connects Tampere to leisure destinations and major hubs like Amsterdam and also the new seasonal base at Gran Canaria. Air Baltic has multiple codeshare agreements that enable them to reach many markets that they don't already fly to, especially long-haul markets. Air Baltic codeshares with many European airlines such as Aegean Airlines, Air France, Air Serbia, British Airways, Iberia, Lufthansa, Turkish Airlines, and others that enable Air Baltic to access many smaller destinations in their respective countries. While some of these also connect Air Baltic to other places like North America, South America, and Africa. Uzbekistan Airlines provides connections to Uzbekistan. Turkish Airlines offers connections to many places in Asia, Africa, and the Americas, while Emirates offers connections going as far as Asia and Australia via Dubai. Air Baltic is also seeking codeshare agreements with Delta that was just approved in August of this year, and it would allow Air Baltic passengers to connect onto Delta flights at multiple European airports such as Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Barcelona, etc., to access many North American destinations with one or two stops. This could also be helpful in case Air Baltic eventually decides to begin flights to the US. Unfortunately, Air Baltic has been struggling with low demand because of the pandemic. The airline's network surpassed pre-pandemic levels in 2021, and hopefully in 2024, their passenger numbers will be back to 2019 levels. Russia's invasion of Ukraine also affected the airline quite a bit, since a fair share of their revenue came from Russia and Ukraine. Air Baltic canceled flights to Kyiv and Odessa in Ukraine, as well as Moscow, St. Petersburg, Kazan, and Kaliningrad in Russia. In addition, the closure of Russian airspace also complicated their operations to the Caucasus and the Middle East by lengthening their flight time to Dubai, Baku, Yerevan, and Tbilisi by about an hour. Another struggle that Air Baltic has been dealing with is thanks to supply chain issues regarding engine parts for the A220, which is why Air Baltic has had to wet lease aircraft from other airlines such as Ukraine International and SkyUp. All while Air Baltic has been wet leasing planes to other airlines in Europe such as SAS, Swiss, and Eurowings that are struggling with high demand and a lack of planes. While at the same time, Air Baltic is also performing A checks and maintenance for other A220 airlines, providing yet another source of revenue. Despite all the challenges, the Airbus A220 has brought Air Baltic a lot of benefits. Having a streamlined fleet has reduced many costs for the airline. Its fuel efficiency has lowered fuel costs, and its capabilities have made the airline's network a lot more sustainable and economically feasible in recent years. The A220's capabilities and range have allowed Air Baltic to operate longer routes like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, the Canary Islands, and Morocco that the 737 wouldn't have been able to reach. The A220 can fly as many as 7 hours with a full payload, and sometimes even as far as 8, so it's able to reach all of Europe and the Middle East non-stop. Technically, they could also fly to Central Asia and even as far as Delhi. However, Russian airspace restrictions don't allow them to do so, but they're still able to fly to Dubai. The A220 is far more efficient than many other aircraft. The fuel savings allow them to operate less busy routes that would have otherwise been unprofitable with their older aircraft. But even on the busiest routes such as London, Paris, or Amsterdam, Air Baltic can simply just add a second or even a third flight to increase capacity to these destinations. The A220's reliability and smaller size also helped Air Baltic in its post-pandemic recovery, and the smaller size of the A220 makes it easier to fill to other larger aircraft like the 737 and the A320. Because of this, Air Baltic is able to more easily compete with the other airlines like Wizz Air, Ryanair, and Norwegian Airlines, as well as other full-service airlines that operate in the area. But Air Baltic doesn't just compete with other airlines, they also compete with buses, trains, car travel, and ferries, and provides a much faster and more convenient alternative to these services depending on the route. obviously not just Air Baltic that's benefited from this aircraft, but other airlines have also benefited from it. Delta Airlines is the largest operator of the Airbus A220, while Air Baltic is the largest operator in Europe. Air Baltic is also the largest operator of the A220-300 as of 2023. Other airlines that fly the type include Air Canada, JetBlue, Breeze Airways, Air Austral, Korean Air, Swiss, Air France, and many others. Most of these airlines use the Airbus A220 to operate shorter haul routes that are too busy for a regional aircraft like the E175 or CRJ900, but not busy enough for a 737 or an A320. It also enables these airlines to operate really short routes, but also longer routes up to 7 hours long. Meanwhile, other airlines that have orders for the A220 include Qantas, which is going to use the Airbus A220 to replace their aging fleet of Boeing 717s and some older 737s. And Croatia Airlines, which, similar to Air Baltic, plans to become an all A220 operator and replace their fleet of A319s and A320s. And TAG Angola Airlines plans to replace their 737s with the A220. Now, as for the future of Air Baltic still has orders for another 6 aircraft that should be delivered by 2024, and options for another 30 aircraft that could be turned into a firm order. And I'm sure we should be expecting an order real soon, within the next few months. Air Baltic does plan to increase their fleet up to 80 aircraft within this decade, and from what it seems, Air Baltic seems to want to keep about 40 of them based in the Baltics. They do want to open up more bases outside of the Baltics similar to Tampere, most likely around the Baltic Sea, and Air Baltic plans to base around 14 aircraft in such places. Air Baltic is also doing really well wet leasing aircraft to other airlines, so Air Baltic plans to base some aircraft dedicated just for wet leasing operations. Air Baltic, as they keep getting more and more aircraft, will launch even more hub and spoke destinations from Riga, such as, for example, Wrocław, Lyon, Manchester, Ibiza, Antalya, Beirut, and many others, as well as new routes from their other bases, and will hopefully open up new bases in nearby countries. Some possible ones I could see are Malmö, Luleå, Turku, Trondheim, and others. As for the long-term future of the airline, Air Baltic has shown interest in a possible stretch version of the Airbus A220, known as the Airbus A220-500. This aircraft would have a capacity to carry as many as 165 passengers in a single class configuration that Air Baltic would likely use on some of their busiest routes such as London, Amsterdam, and Paris. There have been rumors that Airbus is planning to introduce this aircraft, however, nothing official has been announced. Airbus is probably cautious about launching the A220-500 because it would likely compete with the Airbus A320neo and could possibly take orders from the A320neo program, and so Airbus will probably launch this aircraft at a later date. Air Baltic has also shown interest in the Airbus A321XLR to possibly begin flights to North America. Nothing has been revealed, and it's not clear whether Air Baltic will end up ordering such aircraft, but it would definitely be nice to see. Some possible destinations the A321 XLR could fly are the likes of New York, Boston, and Toronto, maybe even Newark, Montreal, Washington, and Chicago, while it also has the possibility to fly on shorter routes that are quite busy like Amsterdam. Or it could fly east to the likes of Dubai, India, and Kazakhstan. Although without Russian airspace restrictions, the A321 XLR could even fly as far away as China, but we know that's not happening. As we can see, Air Baltic is a really interesting airline. They've done a lot of interesting things to become the successful airline they are today. And hopefully the Airbus A220 will enable them to grow into an even bigger airline in the coming years. I really cannot wait to see what new routes they announce, what planes they order, and whatever other plans they have for the coming years. Thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If y'all got any questions, comments, or any feedback, y'all can leave a comment. I also got an Instagram that y'all can follow. I post some cool stories and pictures over there, so go ahead and check it out. That's all I got to say, and I'll see y'all later.